So hi guys, we're back for day 9, and this will probably be our last session on Kneeknock Rise. So yesterday, as you recall, Egan had climbed up the rise and discovered that there wasn't any megramum. And so he runs into his Uncle Ott, and of course Annabelle and Uncle Ott meet contentedly and rejoicing that they found one another. Before Egan leaves the rise in the mist and the rain, he picks up a rock and throws it into the opening of this cave, which was actually a spring. So he tosses it in. So now we're going to find out the consequences of that and how Uncle Anderson reacts to Egan's telling him there is no megramum. So get your book, Kneeknock Rise. We're on page 95, and let's see what happens. Egan sat on the bench before a blazing fire and sipped at a cup of scalding soup. He was draped with quilts, and his feet tingled in a pan of steaming water. He wiggled his toes and sighed, and Uncle Anson from his chair across the hearth sighed too. They're probably sighing for different reasons. On the floor between them, Ada sat hugging her knees, nearly bursting with questions. She had been sternly ordered to keep to herself. And Gertrude on the bench beside Egan stretched out cold fingers nervously to the flames. It was very quiet. Finally, Uncle Anson shifted in his chair and spoke. "Are you warmer now, nephew? Feeling better?" "Yes, thank you," said Egan. "But I felt all right before, too. I don't have any fever." "I'm glad to hear it," said Uncle Anson. And then Egan could contain himself no longer. "I saw what I saw," he said stubbornly, as if they had been all arguing, "and I don't see why you won't believe me." Ada, too, erupted. "Tell us what you saw, Egan. Quick, tell us about it." "Well," Egan looked toward Uncle Anson. "All right, go ahead and tell your story. We might as well have it now." "Well," said Egan again, "I climbed up the rise, and when I got to the mist at the top, Annabelle ran on ahead, and I thought she'd found the megramum. But when I caught up with her, there was Uncle Ott." "Ott?" cried Aunt Gertrude. "Ott at the top of the rise? And was he safe?" "Where was the megramum?" Anna prodded. "Uncle Ott was up there all the time," said Egan. He saw it again in his mind's eye, the tinted mist, the ghostly trees, and he warmed to his story. "It's all steamy up there." Uncle Ott said it made his breathing easier. "Where was the megramum?" asked Ada, again clutching at his quilt. "Uncle Ott showed me a cave at the top of the rise," said Egan. He paused. This was the moment he had been looking forward to. "You should have been there, Ada. Guess what was in the cave?" "The megramum?" Ada cried. "All hairy with wings and a lot of teeth?" "Wrong," declared Egan, looking around grandly. Aunt Gertrude was staring at him, quite speechless, her hand to her heart, but Uncle Anson sat with his eyes half closed, studying the fire. "Wrong," said Egan again, deciding to ignore his uncle. "There was a hole in the ground inside the cave and a spring." And he went on to explain the secret as Uncle Ott had explained it to him. And then he finished. He took Annabelle and he went away down the other side of the rise. When the story was over, there was a long minute of silence. He sat waiting to be called a hero or a savior, but no one spoke. At last, Ada said, "Did you go into the cave to see what was there?" "No," said Egan. "It was too hot, but I threw a rock in." "You shouldn't have done that," said Aunt Gertrude. "He'll be angry because of that." "But there's nothing up there to get angry with," said Egan. "Don't you understand?" "You didn't go inside the cave, though," said Ada. "You didn't really see." "No," Egan began, "but..." "He didn't want you to see him," cried Ada triumphantly. "He hid in the cave in the mist." "That's it, of course," exclaimed Aunt Gertrude with obvious relief. "How clever of you, Ada. And of course he hid from Ott, too. Don't you think so, Anson?" "Perhaps," said Uncle Anson. Egan was very annoyed. "Look here," he said loudly. "I went up there and nothing happened. Here's a picture of Egan by the hearth warming up after his tumultuous trek up the rise with Ada at his feet trying to get information. I went up there and nothing happened to me. Uncle Ott was up there for days and nothing happened to him either. And nothing happened to Annabelle. Maybe not, said Ada, but it could have. Maybe he didn't feel like eating anybody just then. Maybe he wasn't hungry. Maybe you were too skinny and Uncle Ott and Annabelle were too old and tough. She giggled. That's enough, Ada, said Uncle Anson. Come along, it's bedtime. We'll get nowhere arguing like this. The whole thing can't be proved one way or another anyway. Yes, it can, cried Egan. It can be proved. How? Asked Uncle Anson, frowning at him. I threw a rock right over that hole in the cave, said Egan. There won't be a sound from up there. Wait till it rains. You'll see. Ada got up from the hearth and opened the door. She peered up at the sky. The moon's gone in, she announced, and there's a lot of clouds. Maybe it'll rain again tonight. I hope it does. And then you'll see, Egan. Won't he, Papa? Perhaps, said Uncle Anson wearily. Come along to bed. Do you want to know something funny, Uncle Anson? Said Egan, frustration souring his manners. You're always saying perhaps, but Uncle Ott is different. He's always saying exactly. Uncle Anson looked at Egan sadly. There are a lot of things Ott doesn't understand, he said. Uncle Ott understands everything, said Egan. He's a very wise man. That's true, said Uncle Anson. He is a very wise man, but, Aunt Gertrude interrupted, he was a fool to climb the rise. There's no perhaps about that. Go to bed, Egan. Ada, we'll talk again at breakfast. So here's a question for you. Should Egan have thrown a rock into the mouth of the cave or the opening of the spring? Should he have done that or should he not? So now it's a question of, will the moaning commence or is it for permanently silenced? So clearly Ada wants it to continue and Gertrude is upset, but she's not saying why. And does she really know about this, that there really isn't a megrimum? Who knows? And Uncle Anson, remember, the wise men are the fool. And so let's see what happens. It seemed to Egan that he hadn't closed his eyes all night. When, toward morning, the rain began to fall again, he lay waiting for Annabelle's nervous panting. Then he remembered. Annabelle was gone with Uncle Ott, down the other side of the rise. Egan climbed out of bed and went to Ada's room. Wake up, he hissed at the warm lump under the quilts. It's raining. Ada sat up. I heard it first, she said. I was just coming in to wake you up. You are not, but never mind, said Egan. Come on, we're going into my room and wait, and I'm going to prove to you that I am right. The rain came down gently and steadily, and Egan opened his window, and he and Ada leaned on the sill, staring out at the slope of Kneeknock Rise through the gray, wet glow of dawn. All right, then, where's the megrimum? Asked Egan after a while. I don't hear a thing. He grinned at Ada. You'll see, smarty, said Ada, not looking at him. Be quiet. I'm trying to listen. Something moved in the yard outside the window. Look, whispered Ada. There's Sweetheart. The cat emerged from the dim, dripping shrubbery and stood poised in the rain. Then he sprang effortlessly to the top of the garden wall and disappeared over it. After a moment, they caught another glimpse of the wet orange fur starting up the side of the rise. Ada pointed. There he goes. He's climbing. Well, said Egan, you won't find anything at the top. You'll see, smarty, said Ada again. For goodness sakes, keep quiet. So I'm just going to pause for a second here and let's just backtrack to Uncle Ott. So does it occur to you as readers that you should wonder, Uncle Ott, so he didn't come back with Egan, and has he spent the night out on the rise? So where does he sleep? Does he just rest under a tree and spend the night there? Chances are probably, as the story goes. As you can see, it's, probably around the 1840s, 1850s. And life was a bit simpler, and there was just sheep out there and flat fields and this little rise. So that's just a side note. We'll move along now. After another long wait, they heard footsteps behind them, and Uncle Anson came into his room in his white nightshirt, his thin hair rumpled from sleep. What are you doing out of bed so early? He asked, coming over to the window. It's raining, Papa, Ada explained. Yes, said Uncle Anson quietly. I know. It's been raining for a long time, said Egan, and there's not a sound from the top of the rise. Make him be quiet, Papa begged Ada, close to tears at last. The Megarum has got to be up there. He's always been up there, Papa, hasn't he? He wouldn't go away. I think, said Uncle Anson, we should all go back to bed. Egan smiled to himself and was just turning away from the window when from high on the top of Kneeknock Rise came a muffled boom of an explosion, immediately followed by a high-pitched whistling shriek. It's the Megarum, cried Ada. It's the Megarum. You were wrong, Egan. He was up there all along. Listen, Papa. The shriek cut thinly through the drizzling dimness, holding for a long moment. At last it broadened and dropped to the old familiar moan. As they stood at the window staring out, a splash of orange fur came streaking into view down the side of the rise, vaulted the garden wall, and paused for an instant in the yard. Sweetheart, cried Ada. The cat turned round, wide eyes to the faces peering out at him, and a second later hurled himself through the open window past them and was under the cot before Ada could make a move to catch him. What in the world was that? Cried Aunt Gertrude, peering in the doorway. Something exploded on top of the rise, said Uncle Anson. But it was only the rock, said Egan uncertainly. It couldn't be the Megarum, because I went up there and I looked, and Uncle Ott told me. No, it's no use your arguing, nephew, said Uncle Anson. It's raining and moaning has started, and that's really all there is to it. Well, sweetheart certainly is a sissy anyway, said Egan loudly, looking sidewise at Ada. He was so scared he came right in through the window, but Ada only smiled. I really like that scarf you bought for me, Egan, she told him. And then she turned to her mother and said, let's make a great big breakfast. There's no sense of going back to bed now. Let's make a special breakfast to celebrate because of the Megarum. He was up there all along. So there's been a shift in the manner in which Egan and Ada are now getting along. It seems that Ada has softened a bit, and she's actually saying that she liked the scarf that he bought me, and wants to celebrate that the Megarum is not dead, that it was there the whole time. And Egan seems to take this in stride. Maybe he softened a bit too. It's hard to say. So we're going to pause actually right here. And I think I'd like you to think about the things that I've been reading and considering the impact of someone telling you that such and such is not real, and your reaction to that information. Would you argue the point, or would you simply go on your merry way and continue to think what you want? How important is it to convince someone to believe what you believe? So Natalie Babbitt has a very strong theme in her book here, and it certainly one of them would revolve around the issue of belief and freedom in belief. And even though it's simplistic here, maybe you'll think about it a little deeper and take it to a different level. So think about a time when maybe you believed in something. Simply what it could be anything. And the reaction to people who around you or other kids, argued that point with you. And in the end, see if you can draw a conclusion to what is the best way to manage the differences in belief. And that's it. We're going to pause here, and I'll be back with day 10, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I'm not really sure. But have yourselves a great day and be thinking about that Megarum. Okay, guys. See you.